بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على سيدنا رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم أجمعين. Okay, welcome back everyone to Blissfully Blessed, Tafsir Surah Al-Ra'd. And alhamdulillah, I'm thinking about how blissfully blessed we really are to be able to meet on a regular basis, to do something, to ponder the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to do that which beautifies, inshallah, our akhirah. There is nothing better than we can be doing than beautifying our akhirah. We recently had a community member pass away. Actually, in the very development that I live in, I could actually see her deck from my deck. So literally there's like a small communal yard that used to separate us, and now subhanallah, what separates us is the distance between dunya and akhirah, right? A few feet has turned into an entire different world as our dear sister was lowered into her barzakh. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant her al-firdaus al-a'la. And it made me think about how beautifully she used to decorate her home. And she was a person of beauty and, doing things in the best way, a person of akhlaq and, warmth. And I was thinking how really what we need to be doing is making sure our grave is beautiful and well decorated and lit with beautiful, lights, like we have the lights and lamps of Ramadan. And one of the things our dear sister used to do is she would always, in spite of her work schedule, focus herself on the Quran in Ramadan. Not one, but she would do 2 khatmas, subhanallah. Like when Ramadan rolled along, her whole focus, was, oh my God, I have to go to work, but I have to do my Quran. So she had this wonderful schedule where she made sure if nothing else got done, right, that her Quran would get done, subhanallah. And I was thinking how it's almost like after you pass away, it's almost like you never came into this world. Nothing but a tombstone to mark your presence. Of course, we live on in the hearts of our family members, but just from a tangible, physical perspective, there's nothing that marks our physical, the fact that we physically existed, except that tombstone that indicates that we were once here, right? So we are so grateful to have this opportunity to do something to put those Ramadan lamps in our graves, inshallah, as we delve into the beautiful verses of the Quran. We turn to verse number 11. Verse number 11, بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قالت, they said, لهم, to them, رسلهم, their messengers, yani the messengers said to them, إن نحن, in, but, نحن, we, إلا, except, bashar, human beings, مثلكم, like yourselves. Mithl is like or similar to. Wa, and lakin, but, or however, Allah yamunnu, favors, ala, upon, man, whoever, yasha, he wills. Min, from ibadi, ibad, his slaves, he, his slaves. Wa, and ma, not, kana, was, lana, for us, and that, na'tiyakum, na'tiya, we come or we bring you, you, that we bring you, and it was not for us to bring you, be, with sultan, a clear authority, illa, except, be, with idhnillah, idhan, permission Allah, except by the permission of Allah, wa, and ala Allah, ala, upon Allah, فَلْيَتَوَكَّلْ, fa, so, lam is of emphasis, يَتَوَكَّل, have reliance, have trust, place your trust. وَعَلَى اللَّهِ فَلْيَتَوَكَّلِ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ. Al-mu'minun, the believers. Verse number 11. The messengers told them, indeed, we are only human beings like yourselves, but Allah bestows His favor on those of His servants whom He wills. It does not lie in our power to produce any authority except by the leave of Allah. It is in Allah that the believers should put their trust. So this is a response to the previous unreasonable demand of the disbelievers that, bring us some authority, bring us some proof, bring sultan mubin, yani a clear evidence or clear authority. They wanted more authority, more evidence, more proof, some miraculous, tangible thing from the messengers. They were not content with what they were given as clear proofs of the truth, but they wanted more. And again, that's been a characteristic we've seen throughout the nation that were ultimately destroyed. And here the messengers say, wait a minute, we're nothing more than messengers like you, right? And Tafhim comments on this. The disbelievers meant to imply you are a human being like us in every respect. You eat, drink, and sleep like us and have wife and children like us. You feel hungry and thirsty and suffer from heat and cold, disease and calamities like us. In short, you have every human limitation. And we see nothing unusual and extraordinary in you to induce us to accept you, to induct us to accept you as a prophet and believe that God communicates with you and sends His angels to you. So the problem is, like we said, they wanted a tangible proof. And again, the mistake that they were making, like many before had made before them, is that they wanted to believe not on Allah's terms, but on their own terms. Give us this type of proof, not the type of proof that you brought, but we want a type of proof that should look like this, that is going to supposedly satisfy them. And we know that never happens, right? We have in the Quran that one of the reasons Allah does not send, such signs is because those who were given such signs belied them, denied them, and there is no fa'idah, there is no benefit in sending those kinds of signs, because that's not really the reason they're not believing, right? And here the messengers in this verse number 11, fully agree here with their opponents, right? That no doubt we are human beings like you, but our sameness in one realm does not negate the possibilities of Allah's favors, choosing to distinguish us as the bearers of the message. Yes, we're human beings, but are all human beings alike? They are vastly different, and the nobility of people who are chosen to become messengers is in complete contrast to those who go on to oppose the message even after it comes. So Allah favors whomsoever He wills, again according to His wisdom, and there is nobility, of course, in His choice. And so we as messengers, they go on to say, we have no ability to bring any authority or further proof or miracle illa bi'idhnillah, except by Allah's permission. We can only give what He gives us. You can only dispense what you are given. You can only give what you have. We cannot produce anything of our own accord. No power whatsoever. Which is why it's absolutely ridiculous, this culture of saint worship and grave worship. Even prophets cannot produce a miracle even if they wanted to. Imagine how badly the prophets wanted their people to believe. But even that, desperate, deep intention for the khair and guidance of their people wasn't something because of which they were given, supernatural powers beyond what Allah willed for them, allowed for them to have. So what is the best thing to do then? We can't produce a sign. We're only human messengers, yes, but Allah favors whomsoever He wills. At the same time, since we're human messengers only, it's not in our ability to place a sign. So what should be done? Rather, you know what? The believers should place their trust in Allah. That's the best thing for a believer to do. If anyone wants to have peace of mind in the face of their trials and challenges, in the face of the things that bother them, and they're trying to change them, but they're not seeing an immediate or even delayed result, or what appears to be a delayed result to us. Of course, Allah has His own timeline, right? Excuse me. So the best thing to do, and it's, it's a part of Iman actually, to not feel that our prayers are delayed. If we make a dua and it seems like, oh, it's not getting answered yet. Part of our Iman is to think good of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not look at that as, a delay that would discourage us from making dua or lose hope. Rather, the antidote for that is to have tawakkul, is to trust Allah's plan, to trust Allah's timeline, to trust that He brings forth things that only He can bring forth at the time He knows is right. So here in the case of the messengers, what does tawakkul have to do with this whole discussion that they're having with their people? Well, we're going to trust Him in the face of your aggression, in the face of your kufr, in the face of your arrogance, in the face of your resistance to the truth, in the face of your doubts, imprudent doubts, right? We are going to trust in our Lord, that He has a plan, regardless of everything that you are showing us. Of course, that is, so disturbing and highly unacceptable and inexcusable, really, right? Which is why those nations were destroyed. They did things that were unexcusable. They did not take advantage of the respite that was given to them. They did not take advantage of the honor of living among the most noble of humankind, the messengers that came to them and spoke to them and lived with them and guided them, right? And Sheikh Sadi mentions, and we're going to hear a lot from Sheikh Sadi today. He says, وَعَلَى اللَّهِ فَلْيَتَوَكَّلِ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ. وَعَلَى اللَّهِ يعني only upon Allah and not upon anyone else should the believers place their trust. فَيَعْتَمِدُونَ عَلَيْهِ فِي جَلْبِ مَصَالِحِهِمْ وَدَفْعِ مَضَارِهِمْ لَعَلَّهُمْ بِتَمَامِ كِفَايَتِهِ وَكَمَالِ قُدْرَتِهِ وَعَمِيمِ إِحْسَانِهِ. So Sheikh Sadi says that they should rely upon Allah and only Allah and on no one else. And they rely upon Allah in acquiring all that is good for them and in repelling all that is harmful to them. لِعَلْمِهِمْ بِتَمَامِ كِفَايَتِهِ. And they're able to do this on account of their knowledge that He is enough for them, that they don't need more or other than Him. There is no more than Allah. That's actually illogical. We should say there's no one other than Allah, right? There's no such thing as anything else being more than Allah, right? That's not possible. So they're able to perfect their tawakkul when they perfect their knowledge in yaqeen, which implies that tawakkul cannot be perfected until our knowledge about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is sufficient to produce tawakkul, and we have trust in the perfection of His abilities, and we trust the ihsan that He has given to us or shown towards us, right? If He has been so kind to me for the past 20 to 40 to 60 years of my life, right? He has taken care of me. He has protected me. Then I need to trust Him when things don't seem to go the way I want them to. That asal, that foundation of His care should always bring us back to understanding His plan. It should always bring us back to trusting Him. وَيَثِقُونَ بِهِ فِي تَيْسِيرِ ذَلِكَ وَبِحَسَبْ مَا مَعَهُ مِنَ الْإِيمَانِ يَكُونُ تَوَكُّلُهُم. Right? This is the gist of the matter. Believers have confidence in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and your tawakkul can only be as much as your iman. Your tawakkul, sisters, will never exceed your iman. That's a really important point. If we struggle with tawakkul, then we are struggling with our iman. If one is not nurtured, the other cannot be produced. If you have not sown the seed, it can bear no fruit. So tawakkul is one of those beautiful fruits that show the existence of iman. It is a proof of iman, right? So as we mentioned, tawakkul is not just trusting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but it is also a means of not losing hope. When the situation is stressful, the situation is disturbing, the situation is as such that you don't know what the outcome is going to be, and it's really bothering you, right? Part of tawakkul is not losing hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not becoming disheartened by those grim, dark circumstances, or by the harshness of the people around you. Sometimes our tests of tawakkul come through the harshness people show to us. And we have to trust in Allah's plan that He wants to teach us something through this harshness that we are being put through. And a note on people being harsh or cruel or unkind. Remember, the treatment of you is not a measure of your worth in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sometimes our self-esteem takes a real downward turn when people belittle us. And while we are fully open to constructive criticism and nasiha for our betterment, for the betterment of our akhirah and our character elevation, of course, that we want to have, to raise in ranks and be forgiven by our Lord, of course, that has its place. But no one else's, words should have the power to dishearten you against the hope that Allah has promised in the Quran for islah, for rectification, for redemption, how He accepts the tawbah of His servants. So no matter how harshly someone accuses you of something or demeans you because of perhaps some, truthful aspects in their words, realize that, change that disheartened feelings, change them into tawbah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which, marks the beginning of hope. And this is included in tawakkul, right? As long as you're acting according to Allah's pleasure, then seek Him out even in their harshness towards you, by your patience towards them. Okay, seek Allah in everything. And one of the reflections I had this Ramadan is that, subhanAllah, we generally are not able to do as much ibadah as we would like to do, right? This is what I find personally, right? I'm not really able to achieve all the things that I would like to achieve within a 24-hour period. We can't pray as much as we would like to, or read as much Quran as we would like to, or pray with as much focus as we would like to, or make as much dua as we feel we should be making, right? And there are things that prevent that at times, or circumstances that prevent that, or there are sometimes just difficult people or schedules that prevent that, right? But one thing we can always practice, one thing we can always seek Allah through, is our patience in those circumstances of difficulty or having to fulfill another's rights on you, because of which you could not worship more, because you had other people to take care of. And especially, as mothers and women and wives, in our role as caregivers, sometimes that care has to come before nurturing our own personal alone time with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And of course, there has to be that as well, because that's what nurtures your ability, empowers your ability to be a better caregiver, right? When you're connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you can care for His creation better when you're connected to the creator of that creation, right? But every day in Ramadan and outside of it requires patience in our relationships and in all other circumstances. So if we actively, consciously begin to seek Allah through that patience, then we will find ourselves in a constant state of ibadah, which we can't be in terms of the prayer, right? Physically, you cannot always be praying. Physically, you cannot always be reading Quran or always making dua, right? It's not possible physically to be in that state constantly. But you can, theoretically, it is possible to be in a constant state of sabr, to be in a constant state of shukr, because those are qualities that become you. Those are qualities that become who you are. And therefore, you can embody them almost all the time, because that's who you become. But not in a default mode, but invert that into a conscious mode by which you seek Allah so that your entire existence becomes a celebration of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a worship of Him, right? And doesn't this remind us of the Hadith al-Qudsi, which talks about how the slave comes closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? There's nothing more beloved that by which a slave comes closer to his Lord than by those acts Allah has made mandatory upon us. And then a servant continues to grow closer to his or her Lord through nawafil, extra acts that are not obligatory but voluntary. And this process continues until Allah becomes the sight with which, the hand with which He grasps, right? This, and becomes like His senses by which He moves, subhanAllah, and or experiences. So that's possible when we shift our mindset consciously into seeking Allah through our very state. And part of that state has to be this dealing with others with sabr, looking at your blessings through the lens of shukr and plenitude, and not what is missing, but through what is at your disposal by this permission and grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And also we seek Allah through su'adhan of others. And that sounds really weird, right? When someone has su'adhan about you, like these people were having towards their messengers, right? If you look at verse number 10, you're only a human being like ourselves. You seek to prevent us from serving those who our forefathers have been serving all along. The disbelievers were looking at their messengers through the lens of skepticism and su'adhan, like, you have some agenda, you just want to prevent us from what our forefathers have been doing, and you're nothing but messengers like ourselves, like we don't trust you, like we think you have an agenda, like this is thinking basically bad of their messengers, right? So when people have su'adhan about you, when people doubt you, when people think bad of you, think good of Allah. Combat that, seek Him through husna dhan billah, right? Combat that by you having good thoughts of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that alhamdulillah, He's given me this opportunity to be patient with this person who insists on thinking bad of me, right? And I almost feel sorry for those people who are just like that. They're just negative. They're just tend to think bad of others. They just tend to see the cup half empty, and they don't really enjoy their relationships. Those people, they kind of deserve almost like our, I don't want to say pity, but like, you'd feel sorry for them, that they kind of have to go through a life with this state of mind that is misery bringing, right? That doesn't allow them to even enjoy the blessings they do have, right? So combat the su'adhan people have of you through husna dhan billah, of Allah, that there is Allah's pleasure in bearing their verbal onslaughts with grace. There is, elevation when you have the intention of being pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the face of all that. And what would be better than getting His pleasure when someone pains you, right? Because that's going to happen in dunya. People will be painful, right? But if we think of that as a way, if we respond with grace and patience, that is a way that pain can be turned into Allah's pleasure, right? So we seek Him by trusting Him and the reward He wants to give us through the hurt that people cause us, right? Because the vilest of mankind broke the hearts of the purest of mankind, the noble prophets and messengers. Yet they only continue to rise in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So think of it that way, right? Whenever someone hurts you, this is what I try to think, is that, more pure hearts than ours are broken. And those are the hearts of the messengers and the prophets, right? There's a narration, Bukhari, on the author of Abdullah. He says, as if I saw the Prophet talking about one of the prophets whose nation had beaten him. So this is where the Prophet ﷺ is speaking about another prophet before him that had been beaten by his nation and caused him to bleed while he was cleaning the blood off his face and saying, "O Allah, forgive my nation, for they have no knowledge." SubhanAllah, we can't perhaps attain that level of grace in the face of the hurt and pain other people cause us, but we can certainly try to come closer to that prophetic model. Okay, let's look at verse 12. Wa and ma what? And what? Lana, with us. Allah, that we not natawakkal, we have tawakkul, we have trust. Like what's with us that wouldn't have trust? Ala Allah, upon Allah. Waqad, and surely hadana, He has guided us subulana, our paths, and He has guided us to our paths. Like what's wrong with us? I wouldn't place our trust in Allah, and He has indeed guided us to our paths. Wa, and la, surely nasbiranna, we shall have patience, ala, over ma, that by which adaytumuna, you have caused us harm. We're going to have patience over the harm that you have caused us. Wa ala Allahi, and ala, upon Allah, falyatawakkal, have tawakkul, al-mutawakkilun, those who have tawakkul. And upon Allah should place those people who trust, should place their trust on Allah alone. If you're going to trust something, if you're going to be a person who trusts, then then put your trust in Allah. Okay, let's do the running translation for 12. And why should we not put our trust in Allah when it is indeed He who has guided us to the ways of our life? We shall surely continue to remain steadfast in the face of your persecution. All those who have to put trust should put their trust only in Allah. Why wouldn't we trust Him with regards to everything when He has given us the best thing? That is His guidance. And this is why actually this is a very good translation that I just read. And why should we put our trust in Allah when it is indeed He who has guided us to the ways of our life? We shall surely continue to remain steadfast in the face of your persecution. All those who have to put trust should put their trust only in Allah, right? Now, it's a very interesting statement, right? The messengers have linked the inevitability or the certainty or the urgency of practicing tawakkul because of the fact that Allah guided them. Like, after someone guides you, why wouldn't you trust them, right? The one who guides you to the finest station of the akhirah must be totally trusted with everything that happens to us in the dunya, right? One who guides to the highest stations of the akhirah must be totally trusted with everything that happens to us in this dunya. In every affair, we trust him, and we can practice this actively through seeking istikhara, right? We seek his counsel in our affairs through istikhara, by praying istikhara. And that really deepens your connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The fact that he guided us in our deen shows his supreme care for us. He guided us in that area which we needed the most guidance, which we are in greater need, where we are in complete poverty without his guidance, which is something we cannot access unless he would give it to us. And he did. And I was thinking about the parable, subhanAllah, about, when you're really hungry, these days I think we can relate to that, right? When you're really hungry and you're really tired, and let's say you're lost somewhere out there, and somehow mom finds you, right? And feeds your hunger, and she warms your cold hands with her motherly touch. When the mother is called the heart of the home, right? And every worry and fear just disappears in her care. And for Allah is the greatest example. When he's guiding you, he sent you this Quran, he sent you a human messenger, our last prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to perfectly role model for you how it's possible to attain his pleasure and live the way he wants you to while being a human being with all the restraints and limitations of a human being. And he's done all this so that he can, kind of come and take you to your real eternal home. So it's like once you accept the guidance with your full heart, with your full intention to, inshallah, stay sincerely committed to it, to stay on the path, it's like you're going to be okay. Because he didn't let you stay lost in the first place, right? When mom comes and finds you and takes you back home, right? You're going to be okay. So him guiding us is the equivalent of him finding us, right? Finding, like in quotation marks. Him guiding us, it's like him finding us, right? And if Allah finds you, guides you, you're going to be okay going back home as long as you follow that path. And this reminded me when I was writing this up yesterday, it reminded me of the verse from Surah Al-Duha, وَوَجَدَكَ ضَالًّا فَهَدَى. It's the same exact wording almost, right? And he found you astray, so he guided you, right? And he found you, right? Allah finds you, and then he guides you. Alhamdulillah, can never lose your way after that, right? So Sheikh Sadi, rahimahullah ta'ala, his words here are really, really insightful. So like I promised, we're going to hear lots from Sheikh Sadi, these few verses. He has amazing insights to share, one of my favorite Mufassirin. He says, فَعِلْمْ بِهَذَا وُجُوبَ التَّوَكُّلِ, right? So knowing the fact that he has guided us to our ways, that he has granted us his guidance, this necessitates tawakkul. Like, when you're lost and a forest guide comes and guides you, properly out of that forest, you're going to trust him. There's no way you're not going to trust someone who guided you correctly out of the place you were lost in, right? So having knowledge of the fact that, yeah, we are lost without Allah's guidance, and he sent us this revelation by which, if you follow it, we are going to be guided, inshallah, to his Jannat, as he promises, to his gardens. Then, of course, that guidance necessitates, acceptance of that guidance necessitates that we have full tawakkul and trust in him. It is from, Shaykh Sa'di says, from lawazim al-iman, from the mandatory aspects of iman, right? وَمِنَ الْعِبَادَةِ الْكِبَارِ الَّتِي يُحِبُّهَا اللَّهُ وَيَرْضَاهَا. And it is one of the greatest acts of worship that Allah loves and He is pleased with for us, right? Alhamdulillah. Excuse me. We don't take advantage of the ease by which we can worship Allah beautifully just through the feelings of our heart. And tawakkul is one such feeling. If we just can have it, you're engaged in a supreme act of worship that Allah loves and is pleased with without you even having to lift a finger. And He says it is because of the fact that all other ibadat are dependent on this ibadah of tawakkul, right? And this is why the messengers said that why would we not have tawakkul upon Allah when He has guided us, to our ways, to our paths. This is why we don't look at other sources of guidance. We don't look at customs or culture or even family traditions, because those are not sources of guidance. Allah's book is a source of guidance. And trusting Him is a natural result of having accepted that guidance and a necessary requirement of being true to your claim of having accepted His guidance, right? And He goes on to say, أي شيء يمنعنا من التوكل على الله والحال أننا على الحق والهدى ومن كان على الحق والهدى فإن هداه يوجب له تمام التوكل. That, wait a minute, we are on the truth and the guidance of Allah, and whoever is on that divine guidance, of course, he must necessarily then perfect his trust in the one who sent that guidance. وكذلك ما يعلم من أن الله متكفل بمعونة المهتدي وكفايته. And also he says that the one who is for whom Allah has become sufficient, for the one who He has guided, Allah has become sufficient for that person. But one who is not upon the truth, one who has not accepted Allah's guidance, he has no such guarantee. He has no such guarantee to be sufficed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then the messengers identified that indispensable characteristic without which nothing can be achieved in this world. And if it is achieved, it cannot be retained in this world. And that is the quality of sabr. وَلْنَصْبِرَنَّ عَلَى مَا آذَيْتُمُونَ. And we are going to have patience. We are surely going to have patience over the harm that you have caused us, right? You have harmed us. You have harmed us incredibly. And we're going to combat that with patience, right? We're going to combat that with patience. We're going to continue on our dawah. We're going to continue on our duties of exhortation and reminding. And we're not going to care about the kind of harms that we have to suffer because of our dispensing of our duty, right? We're going to bear everything with patience, all the hurt you may cause us. And what are some hurtful things? Other than physical abuse that the prophets went through, some were even killed, as we know. Bani Israel used to kill their prophets. But, even foolish actions, even abusive statements, verbal abuse, slander, eviction, ridicule, mockery, killing your supporters, the believers, and then even killing you, right? As we see, many prophets were killed. All of this, they are fully ready to show patience. And what is patience? We would be completely wrong to think that patience is something that is passive. Patience is a very active state of constantly seeking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and keeping your eyes on the prize of the akhirah and continuing to do what you need to do regardless of how hard it becomes to do that thing. Okay? That's one way we can understand patience. To continue to do what you should do, regardless of how hard it becomes to do that thing because of physical circumstances or other people or whatever it is that you're facing. And Allah loves that. He loves to see us strong, right? And this is something we realize in Hajj and Umrah, right? When you go through Hajj and Umrah, you realize Allah wants you to be strong, right? He wants you to be resilient. He wants you to be able to get right back up again as needed, right? And you can't do this without sabr. This requires sabr, and this is why Allah ma'as sabri. Indeed, Allah is with the patient. Patient people get what people with other qualities remain deprived of, and that is Allah's ma'iyah, Allah's witness, the fact that Allah will be with that person. And we talked about this a couple nights ago. What does it mean that Allah is with you? Not only does He support you, and not only does He have His angels support you. I mean, imagine if Allah's army on your side. That is part of Him being with you, and also Him being with you means that all khair is facilitated for you. When you are patient and Allah is with you because you are patient, everything good becomes easy to do, to the point that you become a good addict. That sounds funny, right? You become addicted to doing good. It's facilitated for you to that extent that all you want to do is good. Your focus doesn't get diverted to anything else except good deeds. That is a proof that Allah is with you. And how did that happen? It's because you were patient. And it can't happen without patience. You cannot achieve the ranks that Allah is offering you unless and until you are patient in the face of someone's foolishness, in the face of difficult circumstances, in the face of your own tiredness, right? We have to show some level of resistance and patience. So patience is a very active thing. It's not a passive, oh, I can't do anything, so I'll be patient. No. It's what you do the most when you are patient, right? You resist the most. You do the most work. You battle against yourself. And you show forbearance in the face of other people's jahl and ignorance and abuse. All of that is very active state of seeking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sheikh Sadi concludes with something lovely on this. وَعَلَى اللَّهِ فَلْيَتَوَكَّلِ الْمُتَوَكِّلُونَ verse 12. فَإِنَّ التَّوَكُّلَ عَلَيْهِ مِفْتَاحٌ لِكُلِّ خَيْرٍ. So indeed, tawakkul upon Him is the key to all goodness, right? Tawakkul is the key to all goodness. وَعَلَمْ أَنَّ الرُّسُلَ عَلَيْهِمُ الصَّلَاةُ وَالسَّلَامُ توكلهم في أعلى المطالب وأشرف المراتب وهو التوكل على الله في إقامة دينه ونصره. And he says that the kind of tawakkul or trust that the messengers have on Allah is in the highest things that are to be pursued, meaning the establishment of Allah's deen and victory for His deen and the guidance of His slaves and the removal of state of misguidance from them. These are the highest pursuits that one can pursue in this world. And then the tawakkul of the messengers is regarding these aspects, regarding these noblest of pursuits. So they trust Allah's timeline for the guidance of other human beings, right? Okay, we have a few more minutes to finish off this same verse 12. I just want to talk about a slight tangent. I'm going to a slight tangent, which is somewhat related, but not directly related, about relationships and how harmful relationships and conflict in relationships is inevitable, right? In your home, with the people you live with, there's going to be conflict. But without sabr, you're going to be miserable in your relationships. Just like here, the messengers dealt with the people that opposed them and harmed them. They dealt with those people, they dealt with that difficult relationship with their people through patience. They said, we're going to be patient against all the things that you harm us with, right? Similarly, we do feel some harm or conflict or difficulty in our relationships. And without sabr, you're going to be miserable in every relationship, because everyone is a package of good and bad traits. Everyone is a package of beautiful and annoying habits and traits and qualities, right? So the trick to enjoy life is to be able to give shukr for the good in those people, to enjoy the good that is there, and to deal with the bad, annoying parts with patience, and not just losing it, and not just becoming miserable over it. And remembering that every rose has its thorn, right? To realize that, yeah, I'm also not just a bed of roses. I am also filled with faults that those then with me I have to deal with and are patient with, right? So again, this goes back to tawakkul, trusting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even in the way He tests us, because these relationships are a test. So to trust Him and His will, His wanting goodness for us, even the way He tests us, because if the test wasn't there, we wouldn't be patient, because without a test, there's no need to be patient. So the test is there so that we'll be patient, so that He will reward us and give us the rank He wants to give us. So we have to trust Him even in how He tests us. Okay. And how do you know if you're being tested? Okay, so I'll give you the easy answer, right? If you need patience to deal with something, know that you are being tested with that thing. Okay. If there's something that requires you to be patient with it, recognize this is your test. That's, you're being tested with it. This is your bala and hasana, right? And bala and hasana is actually mentioned in the Quran. We've done it in our tafsir previously, in our the Quran series. And bala and hasana is a bala, it's a test, it's a trial, it's a difficulty, it's a mushkila, right? It's a problem, but it's hasana. Allah calls it hasana, right? He calls it beautiful, because its result is beautiful if you can get through it with patience and hoping for Allah's reward. So you kind of have to see through that difficult test, that difficult person, that difficult sickness, that difficult problem. You have to look past it onto the door of paradise that it leads you to. That there's reward at the other side of this test. This is why the mu'minun, the believers, are those yu'minuna bil ghaib. They believe in the ghaib. You have to be able to believe in the unseen reward. The reward of the akhirah is also part of the ghaib, but you have to be able to see it with your mind's eye when it comes in the form of a difficult test. Solve me, answer my questions, get through this exam, and you're going to get a good grade. You're going to get a beautiful reward. And don't let that conviction ever waver. If you nurture the conviction of reward with iman, with ihtisab, hoping for the reward, you're going to be rewarded. And you're going to be able to deal with that test with the grace. Only when there's yaqeen of reward will you be able to get through the test with the grace. And how is this possible? Well, number one, you're going to expect it. Okay. Expect tests. Allah has told us in the Quran that we're going to be tested. So number one, expect the test. Expect life to be difficult. Expect daily challenges in your life. When you expect the test, when you expect problem, when you expect the difficulties, you're better poised to show up for them with grace and to deal with them in a way that is pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the next level is don't just expect the test, but embrace it, because you recognize it is your path to reward. I mean, like one of my friends always tells me, right, we don't want to be tested with big things, right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from being tested with big things. We ask Allah for afiyah. We're so weak. We don't want to be tested with big things, right? So these little things that we face every day, or even big problems we face, they are Allah's ways of giving us a higher place. So use these tests, which compared to others are little tests. Use them, take advantage of them to purify yourself and to come closer to our Creator and to attain the reward He wants to give us through them. Right? With that, we conclude for today. Subhanaka Allahumma bihamdika la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Inshallah, we'll continue tomorrow. In Ramadan, we meet every day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We'll see you tomorrow, inshallah, at 4 p.m. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.